My name's Sam. I'm a musician, I'm a father, a husband, and since 2020, I've been a brain tumour patient. I'm making these films with the Tessa Jowell Foundation to help explain what it's like living with a brain tumour. I'm delighted to be joined by Jess today, the CEO of the Tessa Jowell Foundation. Jess, thanks for coming on. Thanks for speaking to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Just wanted to open up about the Tessa Jowell Foundation, who, what, why, for people that are maybe clicking on this for the first time. Could you give us a bit more information about the foundation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So I'm the CEO and the founder of the Tessa Jowell Foundation. Tessa was my mum. For those that don't know, my mum was a very beloved and extraordinary person. She was Member of Parliament for Dulwich and West Norwood in South East London for 23 years. She went on to be the first ever public health minister, the longest serving Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, and brought the Olympics to London, delivered some of New Labour's most kind of transformational public health initiatives. She was a dame, she was the Baroness of Brixton, she was a legend, and she was so loved. And she was so loved because she put so much love into the world herself. She was a true public servant. She was a public servant in the truest possible sense of, and so after sort of 50 years of public service, she trained to be a psychiatric social worker when she was 19, and that was really where her kind of path of sort of social service really began, public service began, and so when completely out of the blue, she lost consciousness. One very beautiful, very ordinary, beautiful early spring day in 2017. And then days later, we were told that she would almost certainly die within the year. I mean, that was a catatonic moment certainly for me, for our family, but also for a lot of other people who adored her. And friends and colleagues, many of whom, she had known through sort of 50 years of work in public health, really. And so when the news came up of her diagnosis, and because of particularly how complex and difficult her diagnosis was, how devastating her particular prognosis was, we suddenly found ourselves in a situation which, to some extent, was the genesis, was the beginning of the Tessa Jowell Foundation's mission. Because by that point we had begun kind of going through the very standard journey that every brain tumour patient going through the NHS pathway would go through. And I would say some of those earliest meetings were probably some of the most traumatic and horrific experiences of any of our lives. The fact that we were told there was no meaningful treatment that they could offer her, that the very limited treatment that there was, which was just a surgery, chemotherapy and radiotherapy, would probably only extend her life for a few months. It was like a nuclear bomb went off in our lives.
Yeah. I know exactly that feeling.
And with Mum, it was really difficult because it was, the tumour was kind of multifocal already. It was already extensively diffused throughout the brain. It was a particular subtype, which meant it was almost certainly going to be resistant to treatment. She then started the chemotherapy, and within a few days, within a week, had to stop that because it destroyed all of her platelets. So she, at that point, had no treatment options on the table at all. But what we were incredibly privileged to find ourselves in the position where, because of the relationships that she had, you know, with lots of different people, you know, working in oncology and doing quite cutting edge things in innovation. What we suddenly found ourselves was looking at, on one side, the options that we were being offered through the NHS, which was basically we were told were inevitably going to fail her within
and we're
weeks,
very
if not
limited
months,
as well,
and very, very limited, and also that hadn't changed for 40 years.
Yeah.
So the ineffective the chemotherapy that she was offered, they were told hadn't changed for 40 years. The surgery, whilst, you know, surgical practices were kind of becoming more kind of specialised and refined, essentially it was the same principle, and then slightly more targeted radiotherapy. That was basically it. But on this other side, you know, through this network of people who were doing really cutting edge things in innovation and oncology, and across the world, actually, suddenly this whole other universe opened up to us of other options, none of which that we were told was certainly going to work, but certainly did the most important thing possible at that moment of complete despair for us, which was offer us some hope.
I was just about to say,
which is probably the best medicine of all, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, and so those very early conversations that we had with different doctors internationally, with an amazing core team of people that sort of assembled around her, sort of very, very lovingly, supportingly in those first few months, really, it kept us. It was the thing that enabled us to cope with the day-to-day in a very, very, very desperate context, to be able to live moment by moment with some sense of
That's
hope.
a really good word you just used, desperate,
Yeah.
because it is desperate. You're clutching at anything and everything, and you just want someone to give you something.
Exactly, and it, you know, within the, everything is relative, right? So, you know, if you are given essentially no meaningful options,
Yeah.
and a prognosis of essentially a few months, also your kind of appetite, your risk appetite to try things outside of the box is pretty high, right?
You will get up and do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we found ourselves, and so we were very lucky in that we, you know, like so many other families, we had to fundraise to then start looking at these other options, and then we, we started the kind of common track of, you know, firstly not knowing a single thing about healthcare or the system.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my head around like how just made up of kind of human beings and kind of human decision making the whole thing was. I was like, is there not like some kind of like it just seems so random and so like uncohesive and unfocused and unfair and so often lacking in ambition, and so often some of the experience that we had, you know, lacking in emotional empathy, lacking in a sense of, really understanding that, you know, these are the moments where you're changing a family's life forever, you know. And so, so we had to do the thing of like, you know, going out to try and raise the money to access these other options. And then it was, you know, for me personally, going from literally not knowing what a glioblastoma was to suddenly having to like, reading through research papers and trying to discover where the most cutting edge treatments were, all of these things. And so the learning curve was like that, but under this terrible sense of the ticking time clock, you know, and time bomb. So it was, literally you're on the clock to try and save the person you love most in the world's life, you know. And with Mum, it was really like that, because it was so hard with her from the beginning, from a kind of clinical perspective, put it that way. You know, we didn't have any good news. It was all bad news. Every meeting was bad news. The worst thing that it could have been, it was blow after blow. And she had a recurrence within, you know, the recurrence was in view between, you know, probably a month after she'd had surgery. And so yeah, these kind of two tracks of experience of the experience we'd had, you know, through the NHS of feeling no options and really most crushingly no ambition for her, alongside there are all these other things that we're going to try. None of them are going to be like the silver ticket, but the hope factor, right?
That's what is key for
and
all
so
of
what
us
mum this is the thing that just blew mum's mind, really. She said the only time I ever saw her cry the whole time that she was throughout that 11 months was after one radiotherapy appointment that she had one day, and she came out and she was absolutely beside herself. And I at first, of course, I didn't know what it was, but she said she'd sat next to a young boy, an 18-year-old boy in the radiotherapy waiting room, and this is at the point where we were like planning for a trip to Germany to get her the whole genome sequence on her tumour done, and we're starting to hear about people that were doing like these crazy like epitope vaccines and all these different things that were just giving us that hope factor, which was sustaining us. And she said she sat next to this young boy and his dad, and she said she just had this most crushing realisation that essentially the fate of every single patient in that room quite possibly had already been determined by their privilege or their lack of it. And that because she'd had the privilege to access, well, it's not just, the network, but it's the confidence to go after those things. It's the family support and the family sense of confidence and resilience to be able to go after those things. It's the network, it's the ability to kind of, go and try and fundraise, all of those things that meant that she just might have a better chance, not just of living longer, but living better with this thing than this young boy next to her. And for her, she said that was the distillation of one of the most kind of despicable examples of inequality or inequity in terms of the health system, that one person could live better or longer than another person could because of that privilege. And for her, that was really the genesis of the campaign that she went on to launch, which then became a sort of founding mission of the Tessa Jowell Foundation. How can we ensure that every single patient and family, no matter where they are diagnosed, no matter where they are being treated, will receive wraparound care and support, and to be able to access the best possible treatment and care for them every single step of the way. And we often think about, the most vulnerable patient. How would the most vulnerable patient be able to have the same experience and outcome that's mum did in our family?
I see what you mean.
And what needs to be achieved to create that for that person.
It's not geographical, it's not financial. Everyone deserves that same level of service right across the board.
Totally. And, ultimately, of course we want to find a cure for this thing. Of course we do. But that is a kind of elusive thing over there, which every week, to be honest, there's some other incredible new
bit of breaking research
which is happening. But until that happens, the thing that makes the most difference to people living with a brain tumour, certainly I know this with mum and so many other incredible people and families that I've met over the last 8 years, is the care. It's the care and feeling that you matter, feeling that your needs matter, that your family matters, and that even... listen, there's so many different types of brain tumours. There's so many different types of, diagnosis and prognosis that come with that. But it's whatever your situation is, that it matters, and that it will be treated with the utmost ambition for you, and that you don't need to have necessarily someone advocating at your right hand to make sure you get everything that you need.
It's just all of that standard.
Exactly, that standard ambition and care is instilled into the culture of services as well. And so, when mum launched the campaign, it happened at a really big at quite a pivotal time in her journey of that year, because she was diagnosed in May 2017, and she passed away the following May, at the beginning of the following May 2018. And for those first sort of 5 or 6 months, while everything was hard and there was certainly progression, she hadn't had very significant sort of cognitive, how would you say? Changes, exactly. And then the week before she was due to launch this big campaign, which was basically at the heart of it was a massive call to arms to government and to the national community in neuro-oncology to come together to create a strategy together that would completely transform the treatment and care pathway and the research kind of ecosystem for brain tumours across the UK. The whole gamut. She didn't do things in halves.
Go the whole
way.
But
that's so. She had delivered some of the most complex kind of public health initiatives across the UK as public health minister, and she knew that the only way you could do a big systemic piece like this was through national collaboration. You couldn't
take the whole thing.
It couldn't be done just with one organisation. It couldn't just be done from the centralised government. It had to be something that was community owned and community led, and so she knew that. She knew that from the start. But a couple of days before she launched the campaign in the House of Lords, something happened that had never happened before, which is that we were sat at dinner and we were talking about what's coming up that week, and she had this, big interview to do with Radio 4, loads of other media, and this is her in her element, This was just her, in her absolute element. And she'd really been missing that life because she hadn't done anything for kind of 6 or 7 months, and then we were sat around the dinner table as a family, and just out of nowhere she completely lost the kind of actual motor function to be able to formulate language, because her tumour was in the speech and language part of her brain. And it was one of those really kind of landmark, kind of sort of really distressing moments that happened throughout that year. And in true to form to her, she just, she got my dad to book her an appointment to see the oncologist first thing the next morning. She went to see the oncologist, got him to prescribe her some more steroids, which they did, and then she was due to do the big Radio 4 interview, which is the big kind of media launch of the campaign the following day. We were all saying, obviously, Mum, you don't have to go through with this. And she was not having any of it. Absolutely none of it at all. At this point as well, when she was trying to say this to us, she actually couldn't form coherent words at all. But you knew exactly what she was saying, even without...
There's no way...
Yeah, this is not happening. So we just had to kind of... And then the next morning she woke up and it was like a miracle. She was just as sharp as a button. All of her speech had come back. And I went down that morning to go and get her meds, as, her house at that time was filling up with, journalists and all of her old team that had come to support her and everything. And I went down to kind of get her meds together for that morning, and I looked in the steroid bottle that she'd been given the day before, and she'd basically taken about 2 weeks worth of meds. She had sort of taken matters into her own hands, basically.
I'm taking this, I'm doing this, you are not taking this away from me.
No. And so she was, she sort of had taken matters into her own hands, and as it was, she got through the whole big media run. She got through her speech in the Lords, without faltering on a word.
I never knew any of that stuff. If you go back and watch it and thinking now what I know from what you've just said, that's incredible.
And if you watch the footage back, one of her best friends, Charlie, is sat to her right in the video, and you'll see he's got some papers that he's reading, and basically he was sat next to her with the whole speech, so that if she couldn't finish it, he was going to stand up and read it for her. But she got through the whole thing, and it was incredible. And then the response to that speech was that the Secretary of State for Health, who was then Jeremy Hunt, and the Under-Secretary of State, Lord James O'Shaughnessy, said they were going to do something for the first time, which was to bring together a national mission to deliver her vision for change. And that was the formation of the Tessa Jowell Brain Cancer Mission. And that, for the first time, brought together the whole national community in neuro-oncology. So, for the first time, all of the different charities around the table. So, brain tumour research, brain tumour support, brain tumour charity, Brains Trust, the whole...
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone coming together and singing off the same hymn sheet for the...
Yeah, exactly. CRUK, and then lots of different leaders from across the kind of clinical specialities, and to come together to kind of co-create a strategy that could sort of, deliver this at scale across the NHS.
UK, yeah.
And so, at this point, Mum was still with us. And so she was there for those initial big meetings.
I was going to say I had a question, and I hope you don't mind me asking it, but how much did your mum get to see of that formation take place, and how warming or for her was it to see that all starting to take formation? Was it something she could comprehend?
Yeah, totally. I mean, at that point, her clinically, cognitively, definitely her speech was quite rapidly kind of deteriorating, but she was at all of those meetings.
Right, okay.
She kind of got up and
did her
said what she had to say, and everybody was just sort of, it was the profundity of that moment was not lost on anyone. Everybody could see.
And there, I could feel it.
Yeah, that it's an incredibly powerful thing to have somebody as beloved as her, who is also approaching the end of life with a brain tumour, to stand in front of you and lay out.
I almost feel like vulnerability, but strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And so she was there for those first meetings. She was there to witness the commitment from the whole community in neuro-oncology. And she was also there to see this sense of personal mission arise in me.
That was going to be my next question to you.
Yeah.
When did that, at the start of this journey, did you kind of think, right, I'm always going to do that? Or did that something that grew in you at a certain point? Or has that been a process for yourself? Or was it
Yeah, I mean, listen, my background before that was, I was a musician and a songwriter, and I toured in bands, and I'd actually just come off the back of what I was doing very full time. At the point at which Mum got ill, I was part of the founding team for a humanitarian organisation called Choose Love, and had been through a very intense kind of few years of starting up that charity, part of the team starting up that charity, and so I knew nothing about healthcare or brain tumours or the health system, but I did know something about starting up something which has got a huge momentum. And, I think ultimately I'm a sort of chip off the old block in that, in Mum's heart, she was a campaigner. She got into politics because she felt that, when it comes to certain issues of systemic inequality,
people need to stand up.
The ability for the highest levels of government to truly intervene on the front lines of people's lives and make a meaningful difference is kind of incomparable, really. So that's why she got into politics, because of that unique opportunity that government and public policy, when it's well formed, has an ability to do that really nothing else can in the same way.
And the only way is to be part of it.
Yeah,
to try and
and
make
so
that
I think
change.
I guess I'm a chip off the old block in the sense that in my heart, I'm a campaigner.
Yeah.
I'm as a CEO and as a founder, I'm like literally the polar opposite of like business face, corporate CEO. No, literally I am. The polar opposite. I come with that kind of, I guess, the sort of the fire of the sort of campaigner, really, of someone who cares at a visceral level about trying to deliver change and doing whatever's needed to do that in whatever
They don't teach
unorthodox ways or orthodox ways it needs to be done. It's just getting the job done, you know.
Absolutely. There isn't any... like, you can't teach that. That's not a thing that you can coach into someone. That is something, that fire, when you have that burning inside of you, that can take you so far as well. I mean, it can take you down some messy paths as well, but the ultimate kind of end point for you as well, it's huge, isn't it? Really, if you take what this whole foundation was started for to where you want to get to, I guess it kind of leads me to ask you the question of how you see this growing and how you see it developing, and what your own personal hopes are for it, but also what you think your mum might have wanted out of this, and if she'd be happy seeing where this is all going at the moment.
Thanks, Sam. So I mean, I guess so what Mum saw was she saw the commitment from everybody, you know, across the country to make this happen. And but, you know, I think it's really important to say that, you know, the Tessa Jowell Brain Cancer Mission is a separate thing to the Tessa Jowell Foundation. So the Tessa Jowell Brain Cancer Mission really is a national mission of all the different brain cancer charities, and also including CR UK and the NIHR and loads of other leaders from the kind of clinical and research communities. And the Tessa Jowell Foundation is one of those partners, and so we, along with the other partners, we fund the work. And I think importantly, I guess the thing that we provide, which is unique to Tessa Jowell Foundation, is we're kind of one of the main funders of the brain cancer mission, but I also provide the leadership to sort of maintain the sort of galvanizing of the community, and to make sure that the work is being sort of delivered at the kind of aspirational level that Mum's legacy
we're not just
kind of
ticking
requires.
Boxes, but we're pushing.
No, exactly. So pushing hard for the big transformations, and I think that's really what the role of the Tessa Jowell Foundation has been to date, which is to fundraise, to really support the growth, and impact of the brain cancer mission, and to provide the leadership to ensure that all the work that's being done is being done to the most kind of aspirational and ambitious and innovative level as possible, you know. And the Tessa Jowell Foundation is a legacy foundation. So we are the home of the Tessa Jowell legacies, of which there are many. Actually, you know, like brain cancer is absolutely our flagship, and it's our home, and it was the founding of it was our founding mission, brain cancer. But, you know, there's Mum, when she stood up and gave her speech in the House of Lords that day, while she was giving it as someone living with brain cancer, very much in her heart, she was also looking beyond, you know, she wouldn't have seen where, you know, for her, it was... she could see that the challenges that brain cancer patients and families face were consistent to so many other harder cancers, you know, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancers, sarcomas. Like it was a call to arms to do more for patients like her living with a cancer where there's been very, very little innovation and ambition, and as this big systemic kind of strategy to do something transformational at scale, basically. So, you know, for us, you know, the last 8 years has really been around, and I'm proud of this, you know, like 8 years on, 7.5 years on since Mum died, you know, there are Tessa Jowell Centres of Excellence now spanning the length and width of the UK, both for adults and for paediatric brain tumour care. You know, the Tessa Jowell Brain Cancer Mission, which is the work that we co-fund and provide the leadership to lead, you know, supports every single brain tumour hospital in the UK now, both for adults and for children, through the Tessa Jowell network. And then, of course, we have our flagship centres of excellence. And that is doing something really unique, which is it's the whole 360 thing. It's not just research, or not just treatment. It's really, how can you ensure that every single hospital in the UK is delivering the best, most kind of compassionate care, ensuring patients have access to the most cutting-edge treatments and research opportunities in every single hospital in the UK.
What you just said there pretty much summarises what you said about your mum sitting next to that boy when she was having that fairness right across. There's no privilege. It's everyone getting an absolutely 5-star stellar service. And we start from the brain, and kind of everything is important there as well.
Totally. It's the brain is the place where the most mysterious parts of like biology.
You get me to start talking.
Biology and kind of mystery converge.
Let me throw it back to you. My daughter, she about 10 years old, about a year or so ago, she asked me, Daddy, what's the most important organ in the body? Absolutely, I wasn't expecting it. And then you kind of simulate everything, and I was like, look, we're made of everything, and lots of different parts make up that whole thing that we find as human. I guess if you really want to drill it down, that's the engine. You need that going. But what gives everything sense and meaning is here, and you start taking and stripping that part of you. It's like having a car with no wheels and no steering wheel. This is kind of where that sits, in that kind of level of trying to be practical with a small child to explain that to them. And I feel like that quality of life, like we were talking about, that you want that. You don't want to, if you're taking out 60% of my brain and I'm just going to be sat in the corner not being able to talk or communicate or any of that sort of stuff, it feels a bit pointless what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to achieve wellness in our life and enjoyment and
also and in the development of new treatments, for example, it's not just about how much more life. It's like, what is the quality of that life? That
quality is so important. And speaking to other brain tumour patients, it's something that you probably hear a lot in these videos. It's time is not quantified by minutes and hours and days. It's quantified by experiences and those moments that you get to have together. Absolutely, and I'm sure for yourself, those are so much more precious than anything else. I want to try and break something down a little bit more.
Yeah, go for it.
How do you feel right now?
Oh,
you
Sam.
just mentioned 8.5 years.
Yeah, God, that's a big question.
And I guess you've been running at it straight, trying to go 100 miles an hour and get things done, get your mum's dreams lived out, and getting your own thing. But I'd love to know how you feel and how you see everything developing around you that you're trying to create in your mum's legacy, essentially.
It's a big question.
Sorry.
No, it's a good question. So listen, I mean, I look at what has been achieved over the last 8 years, and I feel so proud. I feel so proud of what we've done. And, a couple of weeks ago, the Tessa Jowell Brain Cancer Mission was referenced in the National Cancer Plan as being an outstanding example of best practice for sort of community-led innovation at scale, and a model that, it would be, I think the government believes would be an amazing thing to expand to other communities.
Absolutely.
That is an incredible thought to me, and it's something that I know would be above and beyond the wildest dreams of what Mum would have thought was possible, although she also would have wanted to make it possible, but she would think it was amazing. She would think it was amazing.
Good.
And so that the work feels like we're at this massive kind of growth factor moment. And so, the Tessa Jowell Foundation, we fundraise and we provide the leadership to deliver all of that work. For me personally, delivering the legacy of somebody who was such a centerpiece of your sense of being and place in the world who was also such a beloved public person, is hard. You know, sustaining this over 8 years.
Yeah.
It'll be 9 years in May since she was diagnosed. It's the end of a decade I've been doing this now. It's hard. Sustaining this over a long period of time. You know, the emotional labour of it is...
I can't even... Do you have to switch off sometimes to it? Or is that an impossible thing?
Yeah, I do. You know, I do. But it's incredibly fulfilling and meaningful, and I have a huge sense of responsibility as mum's daughter to deliver this work, because I think there's something that I can do that I really know is unique in this context as her daughter and the closest living kind of conduit of her.
Yeah.
But it is hard. It's really, really hard. And, you know, for a long time, it was a comfort because it kind of kept her implied in the present. You know, it kept her sort of implied in the dailiness.
She's very present, almost. Yeah.
And I think that was definitely of some comfort. And then now there's this amazing thing that I can see where sort of Tessa Jowell, the living person, and Tessa Jowell, the legacy, are becoming two kind of distinct things, which is an amazing moment, you know. So, you know, when we do the site visits with our centres of excellence to kind of talk through everything that's happening in their services and all the rest of it, people refer to this big national initiative that we do called the Tessa Jowell Centre of Excellence Initiative. They refer it to the Tessa Jowell. They say, oh, you know, it's, you know, we just think it's just so in keeping with the Tessa Jowell, or it's probably what the Tessa Jowell would expect type thing.
That's beautiful.
And when I hear that, I'm just like, that's kind of profound, really. You know, that's
it's almost like becoming your own phrase in excellence.
Well, it's exactly. So the Tessa Jowell name is now becoming a proxy for excellence, you know. Which is an incredible thing. But, you know, I have always known with the creation of the Tessa Jowell Foundation that, you know, we could never just ride on the coattails of the extraordinary and impactful and tenacious and beloved person that she was, that we had to be measured on impact and work that is our own. When I hear that, when I hear people talk about the Tessa Jowell as this kind of proxy for something outstanding and innovative and aspirational, I really feel that we're doing that.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, in the short time I've got to know you and got to know what the work that you guys have been doing, I think you have been moving from a legacy to kind of innovators now, and setting setting that standard without taking away from the legacy of your mum, but actually breaking new ground for what you guys are trying to do here. And it's not easy, is it? I guess. I mean, I'm saying it as if I've done it, but I can imagine how difficult that is to kind of separate the two, I guess, because everything is underpinned by where your mum started all this from. But to take it to where she would want it to get to, and where you obviously have the dreams to get it to, you kind of have to strip that away and kind of really launch yourself out into it. And I feel like the key things that keep coming up for me are the words collaboration and collective, and hearing all of those people that kind of work together towards the mission, for me, is what's going to make change. And for me, is the most inspiring thing about kind of what we're trying to push in our community. And I've had this conversation with many people, like, I don't know if the work we're doing now is going to affect me, how long things take, but the clinical approach to how I'm being treated here on a day-to-day basis is so crucial, and equally as important as the research we're putting into helping people further down the line. And like, for me, that excellence, like, I cannot put a value on it. A lot of people have come to me as a patient saying, what can I do? What, like that hope and that kind of comfort you get from going into your appointments, to going into your scans, when people know your name, people know which football club you support, and those personal touches when you go into a hospital, when you're going into a really scary moment, just takes that edge off and gives you an experience which you still don't want to be in, don't want to be part of the club, don't want to be sitting here in my MRI, but it really does make that experience more manageable. And I think what Tessa Jowell, as a, like we're saying, I'm just using it as a phrase of excellence, that's we need to get that out there to everyone. When I hear some of the journeys people have been on, I feel sorry, I almost feel guilty that I'm experiencing such good service in some of the areas that I've been managed by, and it's like people don't even know that exists. And getting this out to as many people as possible, like that importance, you can't put value on that. For all the research and the millions of pounds that need to go on that, this element of care, and you can't buy that either. You can't create it in a research lab. So I just thank you for taking that work on and making sure everyone has that excellence.
Well, listen,
there's still a lot of work to go.
Sam, but listen, it's the work that we've sort of funded today and has also been a huge, it's part of a big national effort, and it couldn't have happened with so many other incredible partners as well. But I do also know that there is a unique and special thing that the Tessa Jowell Foundation does within that context, which I think is, for us, it's about the legacy, and it's about using that legacy as the most powerful force for change and aspirational, innovative change as possible. And so, it's within our reach that, within the next decade, Tessa Jowell Centres of Excellence could be the way that the NHS innovates cancer care across the NHS. So you could have Tessa Jowell Centres of Excellence for brain tumour care, women's cancers, sarcomas, pancreatic cancers, so it becomes the way that NHS hospitals improve all aspects of their treatment care and research. I think that would be pretty incredible.
That would be pretty cool. I will help you. Let's build it together. Because that's honestly like, I think every area of cancer, not one is more important than the other or less or anything like that. People just want to be cared and supported through that battle in the here and the now. And that excellence in quality, in service and love and kindness and compassion, just being able to kind of highlight and stress the importance of that to the people that are giving that. I mean, ultimately the thing that we want, if I could say, put in a nutshell, what I hope that every patient could achieve and have in their local hospital, it would be precision medicine basically in your local hospital. So, from the point at which a patient first presents, their diagnostics are all done through whole genome sequencing, then they can access the most cutting edge diagnosis and then much, much more targeted treatments bespoke to them. That's essentially what we want for every patient in every hospital, at the same time as being supported by, the wraparound care of a dedicated care and support team. That's kind of simple. But what we're getting there. There's all of what we're starting to see now is this thing where for so long brain cancer was, has been. It's kind of had this nihilism around it, I think, because for so long it's been so hard to crack. It's the awkward conversation in the corner. It's just easier to it's just been too hard. And I think what we're seeing now is the kind of shoots of this kind of new world which is starting to grow through, where it's almost like the whole ecosystem is kind of stimulated with new life, new opportunity, new innovation. And I really think in the next kind of few years we're going to start to see hopefully measurable impact in how that's going to affect outcomes in survival, and we just can't get there quick enough. I agree with you. Jess, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. It's been a pleasure working with you guys, and I really hope we can knock down all these barriers that have been up and just continue the good work. Some final words from yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, listen, you know, ultimately we need sort of huge levels of like government funding really to catapult this work into the future. But until then, everything that we're doing to support the improvement of care, treatment and research and access to clinical trials in every single hospital across the UK is only done through charitable fundraising, through our fundraising efforts. And so, you know, if anyone wants to know how they can support us in any way whatsoever, then yeah, just would love to say to anyone just to get in touch and reach out, and we'd always really love to connect.
Absolutely.